Welcome to MSD at Home series. Thank you for joining us. I am Djordje, Senior Lecturer in Architectural Design here at University of Melbourne, and I will be your host for today. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today and pay my respects to their elders past and present. We have started MSD at Home series last year, and since we had many incredible lectures and debates, and we have created a repository available from MSD website. This online event is the first one of the year, and hence really important. My pleasure is to introduce our guest, Osamu Nishida, a Japanese architect, a founder of On Design Partners, publisher of Beyond Architecture, and associate professor at Tokyo University of Science. The work of On Design Partners is widely published, awarded, and internationally acclaimed. Yet, our understanding of their work may be limited because of the physical distances, language barriers, and cultural specifics. Their practice is based on the partner system, where employees work as co-designers in projects. Currently, there are 35 people working at On Design in Yokohama. Some of the projects that Osamu will be talking about are frequently referenced in architectural schools and subjects, including Studio Epsilon capstone subject for architecture major in BDES that I'm coordinating. Yet they offer a stark contrast to what we accept as working housing models, as standard unit typologies, as norms regulating the relationship between public and private space. Projects such as YOKOHAMA Apartment are inspirational to architects because they open possibilities and they identify the advantages of living collectively. We know more about Osamu's interests from Beyond Architecture, a web portal that he publishes. In his views, architecture is not so much about construction and technical detail, efficiency and rationality, but about people, everyday life, dialogue, and communities. The last 15 minutes of the event we'll have the opportunity to ask questions to Osamu Nishida. And there is a Q&A function for this purpose. That will be all from me. May I ask Osamu Nishida to join the screen?
Hi. Hello, everyone. In Melbourne. My name is Osamu Nishida. I'm the director of the architecture office in Yokohama, Japan, called On Design Partners. I want to start off by introducing our office. This is our office in Yokohama. First, this is a 3D office. That is our office tour. There are a lot of the models. And front of the entrance, there has a meeting room. So we talk about the architecture with the model. So there are a lot of the architecture model. And this is my space. So now I presentate from here. So now COVID-19, so our office has a acrylic screen on the table. And there the kitchen and work desk. There meeting room in the office, and there are lot of the greens because the green has a good emotion for the work time. And this is model workshop. We are the group of 35 architects. Each of us have our own philosophy and approach toward design, and we deal with a wide range of projects. For example, housing, interior, media, workshop, and so on. The title I put for today's lecture is Interactive Architecture. This is a concept we always consider with great depth in all of our projects. But first of all, what do we mean by interactive architecture? While houses tend to be more focused on its privacy level and how close they are, we think it is very important to challenge the border in which housing architecture can be open to public in a sustainable way as it can enrich our daily lives. Today, I want to introduce these four projects in all different scales, small to large, in which we attempt to interactive architecture through housing design. The first project is called Fika. Fika means coffee and snack break in Swedish. The objective was to build a combined house and shop on a 30 square meter lot in Tokyo. The owner was a collector of Scandinavian design objects such as tea set, ceramic, and baskets. The main challenge was how to make the ex- exhibit exhibited object connect the private residence and the surrounding neighborhood. Fika is very small building with a large shelf as the central element, connecting all of the residential floor with the shop. The collected design objects are displayed on this shelf. The left side of the shelf is the residential part of the house, and the right side is the shop, with the shelf creating a semi-open connection between the two. There is a model. Tableware that is used on a daily basis and product exhibited for customers are all displayed together on the shelf. This is how the house looks after completion. This is the large shelf which connects the shop and the house. The large window creates a interesting interesting relationship to the neighborhood. You are able to see the display object from the street outside the shop. From inside, you can see the cityscape filtered through the shelves. This makes you feel connected to the city, even when you are in the residential part of the house. This is a living space on the top floor. The raised tatami floor is placed right above the shop. The goal of Vika was to create a shop that also served as an extension of daily life. The house connects to the home and the city through the shelf as a fluent boundary. The second project I want to introduce is called Yokohama Apartment. It is a small-scale apartment project completed in 2009. It is a housing complex for four residents located in Yokohama, about 2 kilometers from the Bay Area. The request from the client was to build wooden rentable apartment for young artists with a space where the artists could work and exhibit their work, invite friends, and host parties. The client did not want an ordinary big room or a studio apartment, but something more cozy and unique. This is the standard floor plan of a typical one-room apartment complex in the city in Japan. The apartments share common corridor which is only for circulation. This is the floor plan of the second floor of the Yokohama apartment. Each apartment has its own entrance with a private staircase, so everything that happens above the first floor is completely private. This is the layout of the private staircase. Underneath the apartment there is a 70 square meter common space called the plaza. The ceiling height of this space is 5 meters. The triangle wooden columns are the only internal space of the first floor and contain storage space and bathroom function amongst others. The stairs are wrapped around the four triangle columns that support the ceiling and the four rental apartments on the top. It is located in downtown area among a cluster of wooden houses. The roads are narrow and the intimacy of the neighborhood remain intact. The streets are so narrow that you can see what TV show your neighbors are watching when walking past their houses. The area is dominated by wooden houses and the neighborhood community is very active. There was some skepticism during the planning process, and arguments that the ground floor might be too dark, since the site is located in a valley surrounded by hills. But since the surrounding houses are mainly two-story residences, relatively small houses, making use of the height seemed to be an optimal solution. We raised the ceiling height of the first floor as much as we could, and put the apartment on the top, overlooking the neighborhood. The first floor, with its high ceiling and easy accessibility, seemed like an ideal common space. One of the main issues was how to make it possible for big groups of people to meet in a small apartment building. The residents can use the common space freely, and with its large openings, the pilot pilot's space is visually connected to the neighborhood with gradient borderlines. We try to make the common space feel like a part of the neighborhood, and the facade facade facades of the neighboring house feel like the wall of the common space. This is a picture taken in the evening. As you can see, it has open and welcoming atmosphere towards the street. The building is very light and airy, even in the dense area. The boundary of the semi-open common space is very subtle, with just transparent plastic curtain. This subtleness is making the fluent relationship between the common space and the street. On the second floor, all residents have a minimum private space of 20 square meters. The ground floor common area is maximized in terms of space, encouraging residents to utilize the potential of shared living. This is a space for cooking, sharing, and interacting. The building gives a number of different op options for places to stay. Depending on your mood, it is also spacious enough to invite friends for gatherings and parties. The residents can access their private room easily and have privacy even if the common space is occupied, or use the first floor space individually if it is free at the moment. All the residents share the same power and hot water supplies, which is located on the first floor. 11 years passed since the completion of the project, but on design is still engaged in the use the building. Once a month, there is resident meeting where the residents discuss how to use the common space. The owner, the four residents and the staff member from on design attend this meeting and discuss cleaning and maintenance, possible events, and how to use the common space. The common space have infinite possibilities and are used for tea ceremonies, mothers gathering with the children, common dinner and welcome party for new resident. The Nagashi is concept where you catch noodle flowing down a water slide using chopsticks. Residents have dinner next to an artist working illustrates the interesting tension between different use of the space. Residents collaborated to host events and curate exhibitions. This is Christmas concert by a violinist living nearby. This is a university lecture. A kakizome event, which is traditional Japanese calligraphy event on New Year's Day. Instead of use brushes, we use brooms to write the letters. Public viewing on the World Cup in soccer, a collaborative event with the city of Yokohama. And a theatrical performance took place once. The drama group were friends of one of the residents. We believe that through showing the endless possibility of use in the kind of space, we can broaden the imi- imagination of what an apartment complex can be. It is not always enough in itself to design open architecture. It is just as important to design activity and events that the building can facilitate. Even a small building can hold a great potential for gathering people. After observing the lift in the Yokohama apartment over the layers, we feel that this has successfully become a place for common activities, with the building itself as a background layer. To me, Yokohama apartment is still an interesting place to observe, and has become a personal motivator and strengthened my belief that architecture and community is not disconnected factors, but indeed connected and mutually dependent. The next project I'd like to talk about is a condominium project sited in central Tokyo. Normally, condominiums are sold to potential residents after the building is completely finished, but for this type of condominium called cooperative housing, residents are gathered before the building itself is actually designed. Therefore, the residents themselves are free to express their request to the architect. When we think about collective housing, we tend to think in a very big scale. But in this project, we decide to define collective housing as a gathering of small housing units focusing on individual units rather than thinking from the building as a whole. We considered each of the 10 floors as 10 different sites. Their stacking of 10 houses with gardens vertically. Structure-wise, one frame holds the weight of 2 floors, and this allows the housing unit wall to be non-structure element. Usually, the house unit of normal collective housing have the same shape throughout the building. But as you can see in this floor plan model, all 10 floors have different wall lines. First floor, second floor, third floor, fourth floor, fifth floor, sixth floor, seventh floor, 8, 9, 10. Residents can choose where they want to put exterior wall, creating the opportunity for the residents themselves to think about and image what they want to do their own garden space. Every garden has its own characteristics to fit the lifestyle of each individual resident. The resident in this unit enjoys the time with his dog on his garden terrace. The resident here enjoy barbecue in the weekend. The residence here has lots of plants. Here is the resident enjoy gardening. The rich garden environment of the building is an outcome of 10 households stacked vertically, and is in harmony to the outdoor environment as you can see. That is the cherry blossom season, like that. It also takes in the rich exterior view of the cityscape and the cherry blossom to the interior. You can see the window taking in the surrounding scenery as a part of the interior, like that. Some some resident has a staircase, so it's had to hold site. We hope so. This housing complex project to share the value of living collectively, collectively that cannot be purchased if you are living alone. The fourth project is an international student dormitory in Kanagawa. The proposal required us to create a place for students to improve their understanding of different cultures while living together with students from all over the world. We aimed towards making a dormitory with the intimacy and diversity of a town. But what does a town-like architecture look like? I will do a quick analogy to give you an idea. This is seen from a picture book called Swimming. The book tells the story about a group of small fish getting together, forming a big fish, so that they can protect themselves against predators. Everyone is benefiting from each other and pulling in the same direction. This is a painting by Peter Bruegel called Children's Games from the 16th century. About 80 games are drawn in the picture, and each one of them is depicted with equally high precision. So each one of the game could become a center focus in the painting. It is multi-central composition. In a similar way, the social concept in this project is based on sharing and causing co- coexisting within a multi-central building. We thought that the interesting aspect of living in an international student dormitory is the diversity of background and culture within the group of students. But how does cultural exchange happen between 200 people live together? We wanted to we wanted the cultural exchange to become an integrated part of daily life, rather than something that feels forced and just happens occasionally. We call it sustainable communication. It is communication that takes place when a person is will to, willing to open up and share, and being open to others. Sharing each other culture in smaller groups gives a lower individual effort for participating, and we believe that this is a sustainable way to establish a sharing culture in a community of 200 people. So, what are the design features in the project contributing to making this communication happen? While public spaces are often thought of in big scale, we thought about public space in the smallest scale possible, a scale that is easily debatable and mundane. Perhaps the most striking design element of this project is the boxes uh, floating in the atrium space. In the traditional dormitory layout, there are only two kinds of interaction spaces. is a small informal meeting space and a big meeting space for 200. By creating the floating shared space, we create different framing fragmental meeting platform where students can choose the level of interaction depending on their mood. We call these social space pods. Each pod is about 20 to 18 square meters, similar to a living room, and each have different concepts. Through observation and interaction, the pod become arenas not only for sharing the space but also sharing culture and customs through different use of the same space. One important fact regarding their sport is that we performed several workshops involving the future users of this dormitory to find out what kind of pot are really wanted and needed. There are some examples of the actual drawing and comment from the workshops. So these workshops we collected many different ideas that we would never have thought of it we did this by ourselves. And in the end we categorized the collected idea and made it into spatial designs. And there are a lot of the activities. So this is one idea of the pod. Next, the small-scale space should be connected in organic way without being too repetitive, making the shared space diverse and open for mixed use. This is a diagram showing the unit layout. We located the dormitory rooms efficiently towards the residential area on the one side, and the existing forest on the other, allowing us to establish the general common atrium space in the center. In the common area, we place all kitchen and water supply necessary for daily use. This is an image of common dining area next to a staircase in the living street. When designing the movement of user within the building, leave them with multiple choice and options for different routes. We wanted to make a diverse and flexible situation where everyone brings his favorite cake and exchanges one bite each. Rather than sharing the single whole cake, we wanted to connect people through a continuous sequence of space to make it easy, easier to see them meet each other. We want to the student will encounter a variety of social situations while passing by the pot and kitchen, learning and discovering new things every day. In the big roof windows accessing daylight that is allowed to there through the atrium space all the way down to the living street, creating the bright and comfortable environment. The street-like typo- typology of the first floor is the spine of this interaction-based learning concept. Each door is friendly, connected, and various activities can be overlooked. It is a place for hands-on activity where students can participate in workshops in cooking, sports, and music. And lastly, perhaps the most important element, the full building does not have just one center where everyone gathers, but it has number of centers like the painting that I mentioned earlier. This is a section model showing the program of the different floors. The culture and physical education department is located on the ground and basement floor, and consider of training hall and multi-purpose floor is the dormitory division with its kitchen and social pod. The dormitory division is distributed between six buildings units. Above the living street, the unit building structure is flexible and responds to future male-female ratio fluctuation. Inside the living street, shared functions related to everyday life and located, such as dining lounges, shared kitchens, workshop spaces, and library with music and visual archives. There is also a dance studio and a soundproof room for music practice. The courts contain the main social function, a natural gathering spot and holding points along the living street. We hope that the activity in the first floor will spread to the existing forest area and viewing terrace on each side of the dormitory building. This is the external appearance. Since the surrounding area is residential area, we wanted to avoid making a building's expression that is perceived as oppressing. We wanted to make a relatively raw and longing building with good indoor climate regarding daylight access and ve- ventilation possibilities. Right outside of the dormitory rooms, the students have the possibility to set up shelves and hang up personal items to personal, personalize their private entrance. Decorating with handicraft from their home country interesting books and showcase individuality, give a hint about person's culture and personal performance, and make the curiosity flourish. Although the project presented differ in scale and type of habitat, I believed that they all show what we like to call interactive architecture. Architecture can be influenced and have influence to the neighborhood, but still keeping its privacy, like in Flickr. It can open possibility for a community to gather and unfold creativity, like in Yokohama apartment, and living together with people in a condominium that still serves individual desire, like in cooperative housing. And it can also open people's mind to different culture by encouraging interaction and sharing, like in this last project. We believe that conducting social experiment and rethinking the way that we live together can result in a healthier and more enriching life for a lot of people in many different life stages. Thank you.
Thank you, Osamu. That was wonderful. Thank you very much for the beautiful presentation. Maybe we can let you have a drink of water and see if we have any questions coming in the question and answer box. Everyone, please send your questions. This is the right time to do that. So while we're waiting for questions to come up, there is a topic that is quite obvious in your work. It's about dialogue. And I was curious to ask whether or not that imposes certain complexity and requires more time in the way architects work, in a sense. I think that I've read in one of your previous interviews that it's not so much about sketching, but more about talking to people. And this is across two levels, with both with your employees, but also the residents and the occupants of your spaces. So we will also invite Yuri Murata to join us now for the conversation bit. I hope she's there from On Design.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
So can I just quickly translate what you just said right now?
Sure.
ですね、今コミュニケーション、対話を大事にしている事務所だっていう話なんですけど、その対話の、が2段階あって、スタッフとの対話と、プラスそれに加えてクライアントの対話っていうのがあると思うんですけど、そこに時間がかかるプロセスにあえて時間をかける、理由とかがあれば教えてほしいということです。
それめっちゃ難しい。
That's a really difficult question.
Okay, we can do the easier one afterwards.
一つの理由は、建築ができてからなかなか動かせないけど、人はアイデアが変わっていくので、設計段階とかでいろんなものを共有していった方が、建物は動かせないけど人間は変わっていけるっていうことが実はプロジェクトにとって大事なんじゃないかと思っている。
One of the main reasons is because architecture cannot be moved or it cannot be changed after completion. While during the design process and while we are thinking about the project, it's easier to move people instead of the building itself. So that's why we spend more time actually having these communications and having these intimate communications to create the outcome, even a better project.
And in terms of the tools that you would use in the office, is there any specific tool that would encourage the conversation, the dialogue?
その対話をがもっと活発になるようなツールとかはありますか？特別なツールとか。
具体的なものにするっていうのは結構大事で、それが模型だったり、スケッチだったり、時にはその図面だったりするので、極力言葉だけじゃなくて、絵に、さっきの神奈川大学の、生徒が絵を描いたりとかも含めて、なるべく形にする、具体的にするっていうことを心がけている。
なるほど。Communication in office is not just about words, but it's more about we think these physical models or these sketches or these small little things are very useful for communication tools, and it's actually the most important thing in communication is to actually have something physical, so that it stimulates the overall communication.
You put a lot of emphasis on physical models in your office. Do you see that could change in future?
今物理的な模型をすごくこだわって作っているんですけど、それは将来的になんか変わっていく可能性はありますか？
模型を作る行為自体は、建築を体験する行為に比較てちょっとフィジカルで、CG とか図面を描く行為っていうのは頭の中で作るものが多いんだけど、模型はちょっと手で作るから、ちょっと建築を体験する感覚に近いので、しばらく先までは残っていると思います。将来にわたって作っていると思います。
Even though there's a lot of computer graphics and the technology is really developing, making a physical model is actually similar to experiencing the while you're in the architecture itself. So whether you're drawing on CAD or 3D modeling, it's more about what's happening in your brain, but actually making a physical model requires being physically active, and it's more similar to what you experience within the architecture. So we don't think that it's going to be demolished in the near future. Even though there will be a lot of changes in the future, it will stay as it is.
Do you also find it useful when you talk to the residents as well to communicate with the communities that you are designing for? Does that help them understand the architectural intent?
模型を使うことによって実際にそこに住んでる人とかが、体験する、その体験を知覚することを手助けするツールになっていると感じますか？
建築を作るっていう行為だけじゃなくて、コミュニケーションのツールにもなっていると思います。
So it's definitely a communication tool with the residents as well.
Okay, so we have the very first question that came in. You're speaking a lot about following how Yokohama apartment is being used. It's been now 12 years since it's been occupied by people, and was it always a smooth sailing? Were residents always happy there? Was there any conflicts between them since we are looking at the shared space and everything else?
なんかアパーでもう12年経ってるんですけど、今までに、結構そのシェアとか、パブリック、みんなで使うっていうコンセプトが大事にされているプロジェクトだと思うんですけど、なんか、逆にトラブルあったりとかは今までありました？
使い始めの頃から結構人が集まるとめっちゃ盛り上がるっていうことをやると、夜遅いと近所からクレームが来ます。なので、使う時間を怒られたらちょっと早めにフィニッシュするように心がけている。
Actually, the residents were always happy. So whenever they have an event or something, they tend to be very happy. They tend to like a really party vibe, and maybe sometimes too loud. And there were a lot of people in the neighborhood who were complaining, a bit of a complaint. So they made a rule to kind of maybe not to party after 10, or they made a curfew. But because of the communication, they could solve it along the way.
So there's a question from Fred Buono, who is asking, how was acoustic separation achieved on the open shared space? I presume that can apply for any of the projects, but let's hear about the Yokohama apartment.
Okay. アパの、防音対策ってどうなってるんですか？
2階のレジデンスエリアは防音されてますが、1階は通通です。完全に外なんで。
So in the second floor where the residents are living, it's very soundproof. It's very well soundproofed. But it's just on the first floor that is. I mean, it's pretty much semi open space. So there's no soundproof system at all.
And do you have any sort of knowledge of how much space people would spend in the communal area versus their rooms? I'm not asking in a minute, but just roughly, do you know do they tend to spend time in their rooms or in the lower, at the ground floor?
なんかパブリックスペースと個人の部屋で過ごす時間ってどれぐらいの割合なんでしょうか？
僕も1年間住んだことあるんですけど、意外に個人の部屋にいる時間も長いんですが、なんかこう、例えば、喧嘩すると、家族で喧嘩すると下に行くとか、あとなんか、誰かがいるのをこう感じ取って、ちょっとその気配に、なんか、そういうなんか人恋しい時にちょっと下で話してるとか、そういう感じです。
There's no specific number, but Nishida-san actually lived in the Yokohama apartment for a year with his family, and there were often cases when they maybe had a little fight, and it was kind of troubling to maybe stay in one room for too long together. So he would just escape to the public space, or there were times when he would hear someone talking in the public space, and then he would just go down to have a small chat. And so there's different levels of publicness involved in the Yokohama apartment, which is very nice.
Yeah, you spoke about this quite a lot, but there's a question from Yaoji who's asking, how do you determine that relationship between public and private? I suppose it's different for every project, but I'm curious whether or not if you could digest that in a couple of sentences again.
So the question is, so what is the border?
How do you determine the sustainable level of public versus private?
パブリックと、個別のスペースの、その線引きというか、その割合というのが多分プロジェクトによって違うと思うんですけど、その割合とか、そのパーセンテージはどうやって毎回決めているんでしょうか？
僕がまず自分がこれだったら住めるかなっていうラインをまず引いてるんですけど、でも日本人の中でも僕は結構ちっちゃくても大丈夫なタイプなんで、だから自分のモジュールが小さいから、ついつい部屋がちっちゃくなるっていう傾向にあります。コンパクトルーム。
Basically, the starting point is if Nishida-san himself is okay to live in that space, to have his own private space, which tends to be maybe a little bit smaller than what an average Japanese person would think. But so a lot of the projects on design tend to have rather smaller private areas compared to the public areas.
So we have a question from Oliver Parkinson, who would like to bring Yokohama House to middle ring suburbs in Melbourne, and he's concerned with safety issues. So the member of public could walk in to the ground floor area, which is communal to the residents. Does that happen in Yokohama?
質問の中でメルボルンにぜひ横浜アパートメントを持っていきたいっていうクエスチョンがあるんですけど、でも一番その中で懸念点がこのパブリックスペースにただ普通に誰でも 通に入ってこれるみたいな。そういうそのセキュリティの問題は大丈夫なんでしょうかっていうのと、あとそういう入ってきちゃう人っているんでしょうか？
横浜アパートメントが建っているのは、まあ、すごい、こう、レジデンスエリアの住宅街の中でも結構、コミュニティの人しか来ないような、まあ、非常に深いところ、奥の方にあるので、いきなりこう知らない人が来ることはほぼなくて、まあ、その知ってる人というか近所の人ぐらいしか歩いていないです。で、まあ、もちろん横浜アパートメント的なことをメルボルンでやる場合は、そのメルボルンのエリアの周辺状況に応じて、まあ、ここまでは入ってもいいよ、ここまでは入っちゃいけないよっていうラインをどこかで引くとは思います。今日は紹介しなかった。どうぞ。今日は紹介しなかったんですけど、なんかこう昔小さなこう部屋をこう今日いくつか作って、それでこう共有をするっていうプロジェクトを BMW ミニっていう車の会社と一緒に作ったことがあって、それは本当にヨーロッパでやるならどうしたらいいかっていうプランニングをやったことがあります。
なるほど。A lot of the projects on design overall is very site specific. So, in regard to Yokohama apartment, the area itself is a very how to say? It's a very a closed community where only and a very maybe like a 20-minute walk from the nearest station. So it's the only people walking in the neighborhood are the people who live there. So there are not many cases where someone you don't know completely just comes into the apartment. So but if you were to bring Yokohama apartment to Melbourne or like or a completely different city with a different urban context, then we would start by actually researching the area and what is and think about what is feasible or and maybe we might find out that we need to have a border or set the regulations between the public and the private. We also have a project it was an exhibition with a project with BMW where we kind of proposed this would be the concept of sharing if we bring the concept into a European context.
Thanks. A question from Margaret Allen. She would like to know, how do you incorporate longer term into your discussion and your design? So what happens if residents move out and other residents come in? How can architects predict the change? What can they do for such a scenario?
最初の多分横浜アパートメントとか住人が結構変わっていくと思うんですけど、その最初の住人のために想定されたものがその別の住人にアダプトしていくっていう、なんかそういうことは想定されているのでしょうか？
まあ、部屋の広さが小さいっていうこととか、あと共有部にキッチンがあるとかっていうこと以外は、それほど住民のキャラというかカラーがすごい建築にあるわけではないので、まあ、住んでる人の入れ替わりがあったとしても、前住んでた人の感じをそんなに引き継ぐことなく自分の使いたいように使っている印象が、それは神奈川大学の大学生でも同じです。
This applies to Yokohama apartment and to also the Kanagawa International Lodge as well. But in general, the only characteristics of the project of the architecture is having maybe a limited private space and big public space and the very sophisticated public space, so to say. So it doesn't really inherit, so to say, the characteristics of the residents who live there. So from observing how the residents have lived, it's pretty much easily adaptable on a long term.
Okay, jumping to cooperative garden, leaving Yokohama aside for a little while. So there's a question, how many units are there? We understood there was 8 units, but some of the units might be duplexes as well. So there's a question whether or not units that have internal staircase are 2 separate units or 1 unit.
コーポレートガーデンって、これ、10ユニットですよね、完全に。
ですね、10個の敷地なんですけど、8ユニットです。
10個の敷地で8ユニット。
8ユニット。で、2つの敷地をまたいでる、デュープレックスが、トータルで3つぐらいです。
なるほど。So as you said, we call it 10 sites, like 10 floors and 8 units in total.
Yep.
So some of the floors are combined into 1 unit.
And were you able to follow that project in a similar way that you followed Yokohama, in a sense, to develop understanding of whether or not there is interaction between residents and how is this big garden being used? Is it treated as series of individual spaces, or there is interaction between residents as well, as it is in Yokohama?
コーポレートガーデンは横浜アパートみたいにその活動の記録を取ってたりはするんでしょうか？
コーポラティブガーデンは、横浜アパートメントは活動の記録が基本的には共有部のところだけなので、各部屋の中は取ってないんですね。で、コーポラティブガーデンは基本的には全部占有部というか、各部屋になっていて、でもただ、その外の過ごし方が、立面のファサードのバーティカルな部分に共有されているっていうことをコンセプトにしているので、毎年その外側から木が増えたなとかそういうのを見てますが、活動の記録を取っているわけではないです。
So first of all, the corporate Yokohama apartment, we have all these data and we have all these observations because we only take observations from the public area and not the private area, and the cooperative garden, all the units are basically private spaces. So we do, even though we have the concept of having these we have these common views from the balconies, and we have like a common facade, so to say. In the cooperative garden, we have not actually taken any data.
And circulation route. So if one was to walk, to take the stairs and go from ground level to the top floor, that person would walk through all of the gardens. Is that correct to say?
これって、動線はどうなってるんでしょうか？例えば、10階に住んでいる住民は、周りのその階段を階段とガーデンを通って、10階上まで上がっていくっていう認識でやってますか？
各住戸にはエレベーターでアクセスする形になっていて、階段は、いわゆる避難経路として作っているので、上下の階はもちろんつながっているんですが、それは避難の時に使えるように階段がついています。
なるほど。So basically, the entrance to the access to each unit is by an elevator.
Mm-hmm.
So the staircases are just for evacuation issues.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, the gardens and the staircases are only used when so there's no direct access.
Okay, understood. Yeah. So yeah, that's the opportunity there. There's a question on how did the communication go with if that's a cooperative group of residents? Was it 8 owners that got together and put the finance together to build the building cooperative garden? And the question was, it's not. I don't think it's complete, but I think that they wanted to know more about the communication with the cooperative behind the project.
このコーポラティブガーデンのその最初の8人の住人が集まって、作ろうっていうことになったプロジェクトなんですか？
そうです。これは10個の敷地に仮想の10個の家が建てれますよっていうプロジェクトで募集をかけて、 で、そこに、結果8人が集まって、ちょっと一つの敷地は足りないよって人が、ちょっと2つまたいで使ったりする形で集まったので始まったプロジェクトです。
So this project started off by how do you say? But by announcing that there would be 10 sites available, and announcing that it's open for people to people who want to actually live there. So in the end, there were 8 people who applied, and that's how the project started. And the how they split the site was amongst the 8 people. So one of them decided that okay, one room is not enough. Well, one side is not enough. So they decided to use 2, and those little details were decided among the residents.
There's a question from Yupeng Gao asking about building materials. So how did the debate about building materials go with residents, in particular on cooperative garden project?
例えば建材の議論とかっていうのは、そのコーパレーティブガーデンの住民の中でどういう議論がなされていたんでしょうか。
建材っていうのはマテリアルのこと？
マテリアル、はい。
コンクリート像なので、構造はコンクリートだっていうことは決めてるんですけど、それ以外の壁の色とか、手すりの色とか、床の素材とか、すべて自由です。で、その外の、使える庭も含めて、自分で、決めていいということで、作ったので、なるべくその全体像としては、街並みのように、もちろんコンクリート像だからコンクリートの面が多いんですけど、街並みのように自分でコントロールしたものが10個現れるということを意図しています。
なるほど。So the only decided fact for the whole project was that it was a concrete structure, and that's it. And the individual units, the residents decided on their own. The wallpaper, the staircase, the floor material, and then even how they use the garden. They decided individually. So the whole aim of this project is to have like a cityscape, but not lined up horizontally, but vertically. So having 10 different housing stacked on top of another to create a big cityscape, so to say.
Okay, and I feel we have to leave some time for the final project, student residences, where there's a lot of students in audience today. So I also want to ask, how did the communication go with students as if they were clients? So you were not clients, but occupants of the project that you're designing. You're also working at university, so is there any comparison between student and the occupant?
今理科大で教えられてると思うんですけど、そのクライアントの接し方と、あと学生との接し方で何か決定的な違いとか、こういうところが難しいとかっていうのがあれば教えてください。
あまりないんですけど、やっぱり学生から、例えば事務所に働き始める若手のスタッフとかの違いを見るときにすごい感じることは、そのコンテクストっていうか、クライアントなり、その敷地なりがもともと持っている情報と自分が設計しているものが同じものとして、同じ言葉として話せる、地続きに話せるみたいなことができるかどうかで、やっぱすごいクライアントに対しては社会性を持った言葉になると思うんで、クライアントが言ってることとか、敷地がこうだとか、そのビルディングタイプについてこうだとかっていうことを、自分を主語にしなくても、 説明できるようになるといいと思っています。自分がこういうのやりたいっていうことを言うのではなくて、クライアントの言葉とか、敷地の言葉とか、建築のビルディングタイプとか、建築の言葉を使って、自分がやりたいことを説明できるようになるといいと思っています。
So, from his experience of communicating with clients and with also the staff in the office, and if you when he compares them with students, the biggest difference is that the students tend to speak in the first point perspective. So it's always about themselves. Even though they try to think about the context of the project or the site, the way they talk is more emphasized on what their interest is. And so I think so he thinks that when they start to be able to talk about their own interest in perspective of the site itself or the social background or in a rather social context, then there would be a smoother communication with the clients also.
Thank you very much. I think we would need to wrap up. It's already 5 minutes past 6:15, the target we have set. I'd like to thank you very much, Osamu NISHIDA, for being with us today and presenting your wonderful work. I would also like to thank Yuri Murata for being with us and helping us with translation. From On Design Partners. I also want to thank MSD events team, who has put a lot of work and made this event possible, and also Shin Yoko, who's helped establish the communication and help this event happen. Thank you very much. If we can also announce the couple of events coming up. That's the first one is Life on the Planning Frontier, working in Melbourne's growth areas, Professor Nicholas Phelps. That's already 16th of March. And before that, or actually on the same day, there's a slight overlap. Peter Reisbeck is promoting his new book, Architectural as Global System. We're looking forward to seeing you for these two events as well. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much, our guests as well, and we hope to see you soon again.